The Galactic Council chamber falls silent as the holographic display shows the approaching Earth vessel, a patchwork of metals, visible welding seams, and what appears to be actual windows in the hull. Admiral Xorlath, his scaled skin flushing with contemptuous purple, can barely contain his laughter. These creatures use chemical propellants. Their defensive systems are just meters of metal. The 37 species of the Council, lords of a peaceful galaxy for 2 millennia, exchange amused glances. Only Science Officer T. Larry, her 4 eyes narrowing, notices something odd. Radiation signatures that make no logical sense, weapon hardpoints disguised as sensor arrays, and hull compartmentalization unlike anything in Council records. The human vessel, designated UES Pathfinder, drifts to a halt at the designated coordinates. Its engines pulse in irregular patterns that confuse the Council's automated tracking systems. T. Larry's upper right eye twitches, a sign of deep concern among the Azurian collective. The ship's energy output readings fluctuate wildly, as if deliberately scrambling their signature. Fascinating. She whispers to her datapad. They're masking their true capabilities. The Council's Grand Arbiter, a gelatinous entity shimmering with bioluminescent patterns of protocol and tradition, floats forward. Shall we establish contact? Admiral Xorlath flicks his ceremonial tail dismissively. Why bother with diplomacy? Their vessel couldn't withstand a solar flare, let alone our unified fleet. I suggest we simply inform them of their protected status and establish appropriate boundaries. All technological species deserve respect, counters Representative McTorrell of the Vespid hierarchy, though his antennae vibrate with barely suppressed amusement. Even those who haven't yet discovered quantum folding or rudimentary shield technology. T. Larry's manipulator appendages dance across her control panel, pulling up comparative analyses. There's something we're missing, she insists, voice low. Look at their vessel's design. It should be maximizing efficiency, yet there are deliberate redundancies throughout. And these radiation patterns. The transmission from Earth cuts through her analysis. A human appears on screen. Captain Eliza Chen, her face bearing a jagged scar from left temple to jaw. She stands straight, shoulders squared, eyes scanning the alien delegates with calm assessment rather than the expected awe. On behalf of the United Earth Government, I extend greetings to the Galactic Council, she says, voice steady despite being surrounded by civilizations possessing technology centuries beyond her own. We come seeking knowledge and peaceful exchange. Xorlath smirks. Knowledge, indeed. Your species will need much tutoring. Chen's scared face remains impassive, but something cold flickers in her eyes. We're quick learners, Admiral, she replies, somehow knowing his rank without introduction, especially when survival depends on it. The Council votes unanimously, with T. Larry's reluctant concurrence, to welcome Earth with diplomatic condescension as a developing species of interest. Protected status. Technology restrictions. Supervised integration. Later, alone in her laboratory, T. Larry reviews the Pathfinder's scanned data once more. She orders her computer to overlay Earth's historical records, centuries of warfare, adaptations, counter-adaptations. The pattern recognition algorithms finally make the connection. They're not primitive, she whispers to her empty lab, her exoskeleton cooling with sudden comprehension. They're veterans. Negative. Proxima control. We are not withdrawing. Captain Elena Vasquez's voice cuts through the panicked chatter as her diplomatic vessel, the UES Defiant, accelerates toward 3 massive Zith-Carry raider ships, tearing the station apart. At the Council observation post, General Zithbar of the Veldari Defense Force chokes on his nutrient supplement. By the void, what is that human doing? His aide frantically calculates power differentials. Their weapons output is at most 1/10 of a single raider vessel. This is suicide. The raiders, pirates who've terrorized Council space for decades with impunity, pause their assault on the civilian station, momentarily confused by the lone human vessel charging them. Inside the Defiant's battle-scarred bridge, Vasquez stands calm amid the controlled chaos of her crew. Tactical, run maneuver Delta 7. Engineering, prepare for cold venting on my mark. Her XO, Commander Rodriguez, raises an eyebrow. Delta 7. In this debris field. Exactly why they won't expect it. Vasquez replies with a predator's smile. Communications, broadcast on all frequencies. Let's make sure the Council sees what humanity brings to the galaxy. The Council observation post falls silent as the Defiant executes a maneuver that defies all combat algorithms. The human vessel kills its engines mid-approach, fires precise, explosive charges along its hull to rotate without thrusters, and launches what appear to be primitive kinetic missiles, not at the Raiders' hulls but at precise intersections in their shield geometries. Impossible, whispers a brilliant mathematician. They found harmonic vulnerabilities in the shield matrix that our systems take weeks to calculate. Mark, shouts Vasquez, and the Defiant deliberately vents its oxygen reserves into space. The supercooled gas crystallizes instantly, creating a sparkling cloud that confuses the Raiders' targeting systems. In the momentary blindness, the human vessel fires what the Council had dismissed as a primitive mining laser at a nearby asteroid fragment. The superheated rock explodes into a plasma cloud that engulfs the lead Raider ship. Its shields, calibrated for energy weapons and kinetic impacts, offer no protection against the diffuse, superheated particles. The Raider vessel's shields collapse. Its captain's panicked voice echoes across all frequencies. Evasive action. They fight like Kreshka beasts. The remaining Raiders scatter, abandoning their prize as the Defiant positions itself between them and the wounded station. In the Council post, silence reigns. General Zithvar's scales have paled to ash gray. They fight like there aren't any rules, he finally whispers. A junior analyst checks her readings 3 times before speaking. General, the human vessel's life support is compromised. Their hull integrity is at 62%, and they've expended 78% of their offensive capabilities. And yet they won, the general replies, mandibles clicking in agitation, against raiders that our patrols have failed to neutralize for decades. As Captain Vasquez directs her crew to assist the station's wounded, a quantum transmission races across hegemony space. On a throne of scored metal and trophy bones, Warlord K-Vex replays the battle footage, his 6 eyes gleaming with interest. Send a probe, he orders. I want to know everything about these humans. Computer, replay the moment when the human vessel pretended to be dead. The Council War College Amphitheater is packed beyond capacity. Species that evolved as natural enemies at shoulder to tendril, united by a single burning question. How did a technologically inferior vessel defeat 3 Zeth-Carry raiders? The hologram flickers to life. The Defiant, engines dark, systems quiet, drifting like so much space debris, before suddenly erupting with precisely targeted fire. Gasps ripple through the audience as the simulation shows shield harmonics failing at points no Council tactical computer had ever identified as vulnerabilities. Commander Sarah Jackson steps forward, the spotlight accentuating her battle-scarred face. 27 years in Earth's Special Forces before joining the diplomatic corps, she bears the marks of conflicts on 6 continents. You're all asking the wrong question, she says, silencing the murmuring crowd. Her voice carries the quiet authority of someone intimately familiar with violence. You keep asking how our primitive tech defeated superior weapons. The answer is, we don't think of war as a technology problem. She activates her presentation, and the amphitheater darkens. Earth's blood-soaked history unfolds before the increasingly uncomfortable aliens. Thermopylae, where 300 stood against thousands. Agincourt, where mud and longbows defeated armored cavalry. Midway, where intelligence and timing trumped fleet size. Afghanistan, the graveyard of empires where technologically superior forces were ground down by adaptation and will. 300 Spartans against the Persian Empire. Jackson continues, highlighting the ancient battle. The Persians had better everything. weapons, armor, supplies, numbers. The Spartans had better tactics and a superior understanding of the terrain. They lost, ultimately, but they won the war. The images shift to modern conflicts, urban warfare, guerrilla tactics, asymmetric engagements. We call it asymmetric warfare, tactical adaptation, force multiplication, she explains, her voice carrying to the farthest seats. For most of you, war became a formalized equation, matching technological development with predictable counterploys. For us, it remained an art form. An ancient Veldari admiral rises on trembling legs, his ceremonial armor gleaming under the harsh lights. "Are you saying," he asks, voice quavering with equal parts fear and outrage, "that your history of constant killing of your own kind has made you better warriors?" Jackson's smile never reaches her eyes. "I'm saying we've had more practice." The silence that follows is profound. In her office after the presentation, Science Officer Tulare studies Jackson's files. "You made them uncomfortable today," she observes. "Good," Jackson replies, examining a tactical display showing hegemony scout ships probing human space. "Discomfort precedes adaptation, and they'll need to adapt quickly." "The hegemony?" Tulare asks, her four eyes widening. Jackson nods, face grim. "They're curious about us. And curiosity, in predators, precedes hunting." "What in the seven hells is this?" Chief Engineer Zavran stares at the exposed machinery of the human battlecruiser Missouri, his tendrils twitching in confusion. The gleaming metal labyrinth of pipework and circuitry defies all Galactic Council design principles. Lieutenant Commander Park, the Missouri's chief engineer, runs a hand through her cropped hair and grins. "That's our backup for the backup of the tertiary life support system." "Your tertiary system?" Zavran's translator struggles with the concept. "Yep. Primary, secondary, emergency, tertiary, last ditch, and..." Park knocks on a sealed panel. "That we're totally screwed but still not dead system." The Council inspection team follows her through narrower corridors than their ships would ever feature. Two Veldari engineers bump their cranial ridges on low-hanging pipes the human crew members instinctively duck beneath. "But this is inefficient," protests Zavran, his appendages fluttering in agitation as they enter the main engineering bay. "Our simulations indicate your ship could operate at 32% higher capacity without these redundancies." Commander Park's smile fades. "Efficiency isn't our priority. Survival is." She gestures to the central reactor housing, surrounded not by the expected single control system, but by three independent consoles. "Council ships run everything through central processing cores, right? One perfect system optimizing all functions." Zavran nods, pride evident in his bioluminescent patterns. "And when that central core takes damage?" Park asks. "That is statistically unlikely given our shield technology," he replies, suddenly less certain. Park leads them to a simulation chamber. "Computer, run scenario Bravo 6. The holographic display shows the Missouri taking a direct hit that would cripple any Council vessel, a plasma torpedo tearing through the port side, destroying the main power distribution hub. "In your ships, this hit kills main power, weapons, life support, everything," Park explains. "Watch what happens in ours." The simulation shows the Missouri's systems rerouting, compartment sealing, and damage control teams deploying. Lighting shifts to a red emergency mode, but weapons continue firing, engines maintain thrust, and life support stabilizes at 83% capacity. "We call it graceful degradation," Park explains. "Our systems are designed to fail in specific ways that preserve core functionality." Zavran stares at the readouts. "Your ship continues operating at 60% combat effectiveness after damage that would render our vessels combat inert." "Exactly." Park's expression is solemn. "You design spaceships. We design survivors." Later, in the Council chambers, the inspection reports cause an uproar. These humans, Zavron testifies. Holoprojections highlighting the Missouri's redundant systems build vessels that refuse to die. And he activates the final portion of his report. They do it for 1/5 the resource cost of equivalent council vessels. The silence is deafening. They're not building technological marvels, he concludes quietly. They're building warriors. That night, council shipyards across 3 sectors receive new design directives marked Priority Alpha. The subject line reads simply, Redundancy Protocols. Emergency klaxons shatter the peace of the council chambers. The holographic displays flicker with desperate distress calls as counselors of 37 species scramble to comprehend the unfolding disaster. Hegemony battle groups have breached sectors 7, 12, and 15 simultaneously, announces the tactical minister, his exoskeleton pale with stress. Defensive stations are already overwhelmed. The council's grand arbiter raises all 4 appendages for silence. What is our response time? The unified fleet can reach the border in 6 standard days, comes the grim reply. Then, an unexpected voice cuts through the chaos. This is Admiral Fatima Hassan of the Earth Expeditionary Force. The main display shows a trim human woman in the midnight blue of the UEF, her silver-streaked hair pulled back in a tight bun, expression impassive despite the crisis. My flotilla is conducting exercises in the Proxima sector. We can reach the incursion points in 17 hours. The Council's tactical display highlights the human flotilla, 12 vessels against 64 hegemony warships. The probability projections scroll across every screen. Humans, 0% survival chance. A noble sacrifice, murmurs the Veldari High Command representative, already calculating territory concessions to appease the invaders, but ultimately futile. Admiral Hassan's expression doesn't change. We'll hold until you arrive. The transmission ends, leaving stunned silence in the council chamber. 17 hours later, the data feeds from the border sectors begin streaming to the war room. What unfolds defies all tactical doctrine in council records. Hassan's flotilla splits into individual vessels, employing strategies no council tactician would contemplate. The cruiser Jakarta deliberately vents its reactor radiation, creating sensor-blinding clouds that confuse hegemony targeting systems. The destroyer Shackleton executes a 37G maneuver that kills 3 human crew members, but allows a perfect firing solution against a hegemony dreadnought's propulsion array. By the void, whispers a brilliant observer, they're sacrificing their own people for tactical advantage. The Missouri, Hassan's flagship, takes catastrophic damage to its forward section when it interposes itself between a hegemony plasma lance and a council colony. Then, incomprehensibly, it deliberately exposes the wound, drawing fire from 5 hegemony vessels, which are promptly ambushed by human destroyers hidden in the colony's asteroid belt. Most disturbing to council observers is the psychological warfare. Human ships broadcast the dying screams of hegemony crews on open channels. They target command vessels not for destruction, but for crippling and visually horrific ways that demoralize nearby ships. 3 hours into the battle, the unthinkable happens. The hegemony, undefeated for 3 centuries, orders a full retreat from human space. In the council war room, stunned silence reigns. Science officer T. Larry's 4 eyes are wide with realization. That wasn't a battle, she whispers. That was art. Next to her, Admiral Xorlath, who had once dismissed humans as primitives, stares at the tactical playback with scales, shifting to a deep blue of profound respect. No, he corrects quietly. That was terror. Again. And this time, I want your damage control teams to move like they mean it. Marine Sergeant Rodriguez's voice echoes through the Veldari cruiser Indomitable as bewildered alien crew members scramble through corridors filled with artificial smoke. Their scales shift to distress patterns of yellow and orange as they struggle with concepts foreign to their military doctrine. But protocol states that engineering specialists should await. Begins a Veldari lieutenant. Rodriguez cuts him off. Your protocol kills you when that bulkhead ruptures. In combat, you don't wait for specialists. Every crew member becomes a damage control expert. Everyone fights the ship. Across Council space, similar scenes unfold as the reluctantly approved Human Defense Initiative deploys advisors to transform the galaxy's most advanced fleet. The resistance is fierce, particularly from species with rigid hierarchical structures. In the Council Strategic Command, Admiral Xorlath, now the Initiative's most vocal opponent, despite his earlier revelation, faces down Admiral Hassan across a holographic display of fleet deployments. "We've been warriors for 10,000 years," he roars, cranial ridges flaring with indignation. The Veldari mastered void combat, while humans were still discovering fire. These primitives dare teach us. Hassan remains impassive, and yet the hegemony retreated from our primitive tactics. The transformation is painful. Species bred for specialized roles struggle with human concepts of cross-training. Hierarchical civilizations balk at tactical autonomy that allows lower ranks to make combat decisions. Engineers raise countless objections to retrofitting intentional failure nodes into precision-crafted vessels. In a simulation chamber aboard the Indomitable, a frustrated Veldari weapons officer slams his control panel. "This makes no sense. Why would I target their secondary communication array instead of their main power core?" Sergeant Rodriguez sighs, "Because when their comms go down, they'll switch to tertiary protocols that transmit in the clear. Intelligence matters more than a quick kill." 3 weeks into the initiative, the Council orders comprehensive war games. Admiral Xorlath, still skeptical, is assigned to command a converted, human-style vessel against conventional Council ships. His expression as he boards the retrofitted cruiser speaks volumes about his expectations. The results shock everyone, especially Xorlath himself. His vessel's first victory could be dismissed as luck. By the 12th consecutive win against superior forces, the data becomes undeniable. In his private quarters afterward, the proud admiral stares at battle footage from the border conflict, his scales shifting to contemplative blue. The door chimes announce Hassan's arrival. "I still don't understand," Xorlath admits quietly, his translator struggling with the emotional undertones. "Our technology is superior in every measurable way." Hassan nods. "But we've been designing perfect weapons," she says, echoing his earlier realization, "while humans have been designing warriors." The next day, Xorlath does the unthinkable. He volunteers to lead the initiative's combat training, standing before the Council to announce, "I was wrong about humans. Their gift isn't technology. It's survival." The hegemony arrives at the Cygnus Gate with overwhelming force. 300 warships against the combined Council human fleet of barely 100 vessels. The wormhole nexus, gateway to Council core worlds, pulses with swirling energies as the two fleets face off across the vast emptiness. Aboard the hegemony command vessel Inevitable Dominance, Supreme Commander Drexar studies the tactical display with the confidence of a predator who has never known defeat. Victory probability. He asks his chief strategist. 98.7%. Supreme Commander. Their technological inferiority is compounded by numerical disadvantage. Drexar nods, 6 eyes blinking in sequence, a gesture of satisfaction among his kind. Begin the attack pattern. Standard Conquest Formation Delta. The first salvos cross the void, and confusion spreads through the hegemony command center. Council vessels, once rigidly predictable in their responses, perform maneuvers that defy all tactical expectations. "They're using human doctrine," mutters the strategist, recalibrating the battle computers. Erratic movement patterns, distributed command structure, targeting priorities that prioritize systems over hull integrity. Drexar watches with growing concern as the tactical display shows Council ships deliberately accepting damage to create firing lanes for allies. Vessels operating at impossible energy outputs, far beyond their rated capacity. Ships continuing to fight despite catastrophic system failures that should render them combat inert. "Impossible," he whispers, mandibles clicking in agitation. The Missouri, Admiral Hassan's flagship, takes devastating fire from 3 hegemony dreadnoughts. The human vessel's entire port side is sheared away, atmosphere venting in glittering trails across the battlefield. By all logic, it should be dead in space. Instead, the crippled vessel continues accelerating, directly toward Drexar's command ship. "Evasive action," he orders, but his crew hesitates, confused by the suicidal trajectory of what should be a floating hulk. "Our calculations indicate the vessel cannot maneuver with such damage," reports his second-in-command. "Its control systems are completely—" The tactical officer interrupts with panic in his voice. "They're manually detonating charges along their hull to adjust trajectory. I'm detecting humans in vacuum suits physically placing explosives on their own ship." Drexar stares at the view screen as the Missouri executes a complex evasive pattern through his defensive screen. Impossible for a crippled vessel, yet happening before his eyes. His final transmission to the hegemony fleet captures the psychological breaking point. They don't die when they're killed. The Missouri's desperate ramming maneuver splits the inevitable dominance in two. As his fleet watches their invincible leader destroyed by what should have been a floating hulk, panic spreads like contagion through the hegemony ranks. The mathematical models of warfare that served them for millennia cannot account for human unpredictability, and what one officer's report later calls terrifying willingness to sacrifice. The hegemony retreat becomes a rout, their formations disintegrating as they flee the sickness sector. In the drifting wreckage, search and rescue teams find Admiral Hassan in Missouri's emergency command pod, barely alive but conscious. As medics rush her to safety, she smiles through blood-stained teeth. "We won," she whispers, "just as planned." The hegemony peace delegation arrives at council headquarters in unprecedented humility. Species that once conquered 1,000 worlds now request terms with eyes downcast, their ornate battle regalia replaced with simple diplomatic attire. The treaty they sign contains a single non-negotiable condition. All hegemony vessels must transmit identification signals that can be detected by human early warning systems. What none of the hegemony delegates realize, but several council members know, is that these systems don't actually exist. The psychological deterrent alone is sufficient. In the Grand Council chamber, festooned with the emblems of 37 species, Admiral Exorlath, now Supreme Commander of Combined Forces, stands beside Admiral Hassan. She still bears the scars from sickness, her left arm replaced with a cybernetic prosthesis, her face bearing new lines of pain and triumph. Together they unveil the new Council military doctrine, a document shaped entirely around human principles of warfare. For 2 millennia, we possessed superior technology, Exorlath tells the assembly, his scales shimmering with formal blue-green patterns. Yet we nearly fell to the hegemony. Humanity saved us not with better weapons, but with better warriors. The galaxy transforms with astonishing speed. The Brilliant Naval Academy, oldest military institution in known space, replaces its 10-millennium-old tactical manuals with studies of Earth's historical battles, Thermopylae and Agincourt taught alongside their own martial heritage. Council shipyards rebuild fleets according to human redundancy principles. Tactical simulators now include chaos variables, designed to teach adaptation rather than optimal response. Cross-species training emphasizes the psychological dimensions of combat that most races have forgotten or never developed. At the Cygnus Gate, a massive monument rises from the stellar debris, the salvaged emergency command pod of the Missouri, preserved exactly as it was found, scarred and broken yet undefeated. Below it, inscribed in 37 languages, are the words that now strike terror into potential aggressors across the galaxy. Human vessel detected. Tactical outcome uncertain. In the hospital wing of Earth's embassy, Tilleri visits Admiral Hassan during her rehabilitation. Through the window, they watch Council cadets training alongside human instructors, the once rigid alien movements now fluid and unpredictable. Was it worth it? T. Larry asks, her four eyes blinking in the pattern that indicates philosophical inquiry. The lives lost, the ships sacrificed. Hassan watches a Veldari officer demonstrate to his squad how to repurpose a food synthesizer as an improvised weapon. The greatest victory isn't winning the war, she replies softly. It's making everyone too frightened to start one. As night falls over the council capital, dozens of species look up at unfamiliar constellations and sleep peacefully under the protection of the Pax Humana, a peace secured not through technological supremacy, but through the galaxy-wide realization that in warfare, the most dangerous weapon is the human mind.